not even really kidding, that's a tactic that my niece recently used on her grandmother to convince her not to move out. Y'all are just putty in that little brat's hands. We opened this week with something coming out of a lake in Skyland, and from there we just cut over to a mother and child playing together. Now you see, this is why you never show your daughter Wreck-It Ralph 2. Like, seriously, the first film is perfect, so any sort of sequel would just devalue it. But yeah, as nicely hinted at the end of the last episode, this was going to be a Mashiro outing, as she had shown clear signs of concern that her daughter was going to join them on the battlefield. A detail that I'm not sure if they told the king and queen. Like, seriously, am I the only one who kind of wanted to see their reactions to their baby's transformation? I mean, we still might get it later, but this is a good chance to do it is all I'm saying. Anyway, Yo-Yo, who as also confirmed in the last episode had been doing research in Sky Kingdom, had discovered the temple that had appeared in the intro and was calling in the Precure. We then got the opening this week, which featured Majesty in only the first and last parts of the sequence. Though before we say she got the Setsuna treatment, it is worth knowing that this opening might still be incomplete, as the broadcast version of this episode featured previews of All Stars F, so they only really need to change up those two parts. Not to mention, a certain someone will be replaced soon. And as for that preview, which would also lead into the broadcast version of the ending of this episode, spoiling a whole song sequence in the film, we won't show too much for those who don't want to be spoiled. That said, can we all just appreciate just this one bit of Masho and Ravelin in the same shot? That's just fantastic. Anyway, the Precure made their way to a temple that was floating in the sky. Well, y'all will need as much help as you can get against Ganondorf. And yeah, I guess what we're going to reference a lot in this review. I mean, really, this whole episode felt like Ryunosuke Kingetsu just finished playing Tears of the Kingdom and just decided to do a whole episode around it, as even them reading some ancient scriptures on a big rock feels like something you do in that game right before going into a dungeon. And not too surprisingly, they talked about a princess unleashing some kind of big MacGuffin power in the temple. Yeah, it's all kind of blatant, but as someone who enjoys Legend of Zelda, I can appreciate it. Then hey, at least the princess of this story didn't become a— No spoilers! Anyway, they're about to enter the Temple of Time, but Masho was again hesitant about letting Elle in, and even tried to convince her not to go in based on some tired tropes. Hey, visual storytelling. Nice to have you back. I mean, yeah, it's been kind of sprinkled throughout these last few episodes, including how we closed the last one, but this more literal approximation of an emotional wall separating Masho from the rest of her team stands out a little more, and does help to exemplify the major theme of this episode involving her and her parental insecurities. In fact, there was a scene later in the episode that I kind of wish they did include any of this monologuing from Masho, as her facial expressions alone sold her concerns. Oh well, good stuff here at least. Anyway, after clearing the temple rather quickly, I'm guessing Elle already has the lens of truth, they start to theorize what benefits their new MacGuffin could provide. Over here, Tsuburaya, your opening for a lawsuit is right here! They made their way to the final room where, oh come on, where are y'all hiding Raoru's statue? Anyway, the new MacGuffin was there, and was also going to be an expensive new toy. Like, seriously, how does that thing cost more than my Devilman figure? And it was called the Majestic Chronicle. Yeah, I think we'll just stick with Chronicle. And at first, they couldn't open it, which was particularly unfortunate as they had company. Never knew Ganon trade with the Gorons. But yeah, Spearhead had sent out a roided out Mino-Tone on one last mission, and no, I'm really not even kidding about that.
Don't do drugs, kids!
And unfortunately, we didn't get a 5-person group transformation or roll call this week because they still gotta sell them new toys, but what we did get was a really damn good fight. I'm pretty sure most of this was done by veteran animator Akira Inagami, whom we've talked about more than once on this channel, but they were also co-directing with Keisuke Katayama. I'm not sure how much he contributed, if at all, but if he did, at least their styles complement each other. I'm also pretty sure he did one bit of animation that we'll get to later, but still really good DBZS sequence here. Anyway, Mino-Ganon managed to push them back thanks to all of his doping, and don't even try to tell me that's not what this looks like. And as a result, Masho and L were pushed aside so that they could have a moment, as well as try to get the Chronicle to work. Okay, now you're just being a tease at this point, dude. Of course, like many good Zelda puzzle, the solution was hinted at in the clues left in the dungeon, which of course was that they all need to reach out at it at once with a unified heart. Yeah, not surprisingly, Masho became the sticking point for the book not activating. And while the solution here could have easily been overly cheesy exchange between the mother and daughter, it was instead between the mother and father, which, yeah, I do prefer. I mean, for one thing, as even the new movie seems to confirm, Sora and Masho have unquestionably the actual strongest relationship in the show, and calling back to the 5th episode here was very appropriate, as the positions had been kind of reversed, with Masho now being the overly concerned one, when Elle wanted to work with everyone, including her of course. It actually added to Masho's arc, and had the side benefit of getting around the Six Ranger spotlight stealing effect, which thankfully wasn't even all that strong in this episode. Anyway, it was time for a new finisher, which started with everyone making their best heroic pose. I mean, Sora and Tsubasa look good, but Akiha joined the Broken Back Club, and Masho, Are you like trying to pull off a Makoto meme face because you're not quite doing it right? Elle kind of did a pose, but it didn't last long, and instead we just went right into the main event. Yeah, I think this was done by Keisuke Katayama, as he also did Tsubasa's finisher, with this bit of them drawing their symbol in the sky does seem to borrow a lot from. It's very dynamically done, and I like how we can see them subtly changing directions in order to form the curvatures of the center emblem, but then of course came the topper. Okay, so in previous seasons we got Ryder kicking pink elephants and epic ring around the rosies, so what kind of goofy crap are we going to get this year? Group Kamehameha. Okay, I can work with that. Yeah, all around a pretty sweet finisher that doesn't even need some pretty pointless super forms that they're not even really going to use. With it, they managed to purify Mino-Ganon, and he honorably left the show, likely to go sign up for AA. And the episode ended with Masho and Elle having a nice exchange, and the latter enjoying her new, really expensive book. Seriously, my Zatchbell book is a much better buy. That said, and viewing this as us entering into a new arc for this series, I would say we're off to a strong start. Yeah, with Mino-Ganon leaving and a new status quo being established, this does feel like we're getting some necessary shakeups to the main conflict of this show. The fact this was also a Best Girl Masho episode kind of helps too. I've already said my piece about Elle's Cure debut, and while I'm still not crazy about it, I do appreciate that it has acted as a sign for some changes to this show, including possibly some rewrites. Yeah, this is just a theory that one of our commenters brought up in the last review, but I do think it's possible that they have rewritten a few things in order to both ensure Majesty would be able to appear in the movie, and also develop the villains more. Mino-Ton's now full departure from the show, and someone else returning soon, does seem to indicate that the Empire will get a little more serious, which I'll keep my fingers crossed on. And in order to justify these changes, this episode did change up the status quo in a lot of good ways. The new group finisher is easily the best of the three in the show so far, with it being technically impressive, and yet not feeling overly gimmicky or just that. And even without that, this was just a plain good episode for the plain good Masho. Nah, but seriously, I did like this conflict for Masho, as without hyperbole, she is the mother figure of this group, and does try to do everything she can for them. She was never worried about Sora fighting, as she always viewed her as stronger, and thus was trying to get to her level. But, and even with all of the insane Six Ranger buffs, she still does view Elle as a child that she has to protect. This led to a nice, well-told tale that inversed her previous interactions with Sora and Elle, and led to her recognizing that they could work all together. Add on top of that some fun Zelda ripoffs, and you get an episode that I can't really complain much about. Hopefully, these are signs that the show will start exploring its world a lot more, and not just speedrunning into the final battle with Ganon. If you haven't seen it yet, we just did a comparison video with this show, as well as one of my new favorite games of the year, Rain Code. In it, we bring up our criticisms towards this show's villains that still, for now at least, apply, but as we even point out in that video, they could still turn things around. I mean, this episode seemed to be a good sign of just that, so keep your fingers crossed at least. And until next time though, farewell for now my friends, and oh, a new temple just opened up. Great, I could use a new health container.